Good evening. Welcome to the August 13th, 2018 Board of Selectmen's meeting. We have one individual who is sick, and that's Mike McCoy. All other members are present, in addition to our town manager, Jeff Hull. I'm sorry for starting off a little bit too late. We had an executive session prior, and the executive session was for the purposes of considering the purchase, exchange, lease, and value of real property at 333 Andover Street in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, and further for the purposes of discussing strategies with respect to collective bargaining with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 1730, and the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, Local 1703, Units 1 and 2, in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, as an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiation of the position of the town. And with that said, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have some treasury warrants to begin the meeting with, and that's 54, 54A, 2, 2A, 3, 3A, 4, 4A, 5, 5A, 6, and 6A. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the treasury warrants? Hearing none, all in favor? Unanimous with the 4 and 1 absent. We have 2 sets of minutes for approval. That is June 25th, 2018 and July 9th, 2018. We'll take up the first one, June 25th. Does anybody have any, is there a motion for the minutes?
So moved.
There's a motion by Mr. Bendel, seconded by Mr. Eden. Any discussion on the minutes? Any errors, omissions, corrections, comments? All in favor? 4 and 1 absent. Now we have the minutes of July 9th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Loud, seconded by Mr. Bendel. Any errors, corrections, omissions, comments on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor? Unanimous with 1 absence. All right. To our first appointment, and that's with Chairman Julie Prasad with the Wilmington School Committee for the appointment of a vacant position on the school committee that was vacated by Margaret Kane, better known as Peggy, who served this town admirably in her position as school committee. And we've tried to make arrangements with everybody so that we would all be here. And unfortunately, Mr. McCoy went home ill, so that we wanted a full vote. That's why we pulled it off until August 13th rather than having it earlier. So we don't have a full selectmen's committee tonight. We do have a full board for the school committee. I would like for us to have a full board of both, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And I'm not opposed to moving forward and having a vote tonight for a member on your school committee, but I would like maybe some discussion, seeing that we don't have a particular person here, to see if you want to move forward with the vote or postpone it or have another meeting to take the vote. Yes.
May I ask you, Mr. Chairman, did you ask Mr. McCoy how he felt about us going forward?
I did not. No, it was a sudden, he just didn't feel well. He had to leave. So, yes.
Thank you. For all intents and purposes, I personally would like to move forward. We have quorum amongst both boards. It's important I see it in my perspective, with an upcoming workshop would be an opportune time to have any new candidate join us on Wednesday evening, which will be the first start in getting the work for our upcoming year started. We too start with our planning and school board meeting, I believe, next week, the 29th. So it would be ideal to have that time to prepare any new appointee for their role in finishing the term of Mrs. Kane. So,
Anybody else wish to weigh in? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I would ask that we move forward, as we know it's difficult enough to get a date that all works for everyone. We've gone now for a month without somebody, our full complement of our committee. As Mrs. Burns referred to, we do have a workshop planned for this Wednesday for us and our new superintendent to kick off the new year. We think it would be very helpful if our new person was able to join us for that, if it works out that way, with our next regular business meeting on the 29th. So we're eager to get going and move forward.
Sounds good. So we'll move forward then.
Great.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, what I'd like to do is invite the candidates, if they're here, one at a time, to come up and maybe give us a little overview of themselves, their background, why they want to serve on the school committee, just to talk to us in that regard. I know that they're not mandated to be here. I don't know if they're all here or not. But let's start with who's Mr. Finley. Is he here? Is Jesse Finley? Why don't you come up and join us?
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Jesse Finley. I had the privilege and pleasure to get to know most of you this past year. As you know, I ran for the school committee in April. I was ultimately unsuccessful, but that race really reaffirmed my commitment to the town and to our schools. And when Ms. Kane decided to retire, I thought that I could bring something to the school committee that, like I had said in the campaign, that, you know, some due diligence, level-headed preparation. I'm a parent to 2 young kids. My older son starts the 2nd grade, and my little one, we just bought him his first backpack. He starts kindergarten this year. So I'm very much invested in the success of our schools, and with the new superintendent, I think the sky's the limit. So I'm eager and hopeful to have a chance to work with all of you as a colleague rather than just a resident.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody wish to make a comment or have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Joe Newhouse?
Good evening. I'm Joe Newhouse, and it's been in the back of my mind for a few years to run for a school committee, and I thought this was the opportune time for me to step forward. I've been very active with the CPAC in town, the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, and I haven't stepped forward in the last few years because I was actively involved with some different items with that committee, and I feel at this point that I'm able to step forward and move on from there. And as you all saw in my letter, I've been very actively involved with the schools, both at the school levels and at the district level, for at least 6 years now, if not more. And I just felt with Mrs. Kane stepping back that it was now time for me that I could take that volunteerism and commitment to the school district to the next level and hopefully take a chance at serving on the school committee.
Thank you. And I'll offer the same. Does anybody have any comments or questions they want to ask the candidate? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Scott Treck. Did I get that right? What is it? Truck?
It's Trot, but that's okay.
Truck. Sorry about that.
No
Apologize.
problems whatsoever. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and school committee. Thank you for having me here this evening. I'll give you a little background of my interest in this. I'll start by saying that I've always been a believer that if you want to affect change and contribute to the good of the community, you need to get involved. I recently did this in terms of my son's Pop Warner team. I got involved with the board when they were looking for new members. So I feel strongly that the citizens' responsibility, and I'd like to commend the other two candidates for this position for stepping up when the call sounded for this position. Certainly in terms of my background, I've done education all my life. My undergraduate is in music education. My master's degree is in educational leadership. I've served many roles within a public school for the early 16 years of my professional career. I've served as a classroom teacher. I've served as a district administrator, K through 12. I've also served as a building liaison to a large state program called the Maine Learning Initiative that specialized in integrating technology into schools. Most recently, I've transitioned into higher education. I'm currently the Associate Dean of Student Advising and Success at Berklee College of Music. I have direct oversight of our Disability Services office there, where primary responsibility is to ensure access for students and compliance with federal laws and regulation. And I think most importantly, I really believe in the power of public education and the right of a community to really set their values in terms of what that public education system does. So I hope that I can lend some of my past experience in all those different areas as a parent, as a citizen, as a teacher, as an administrator, to the work of the board. And I can also represent the citizens of Wilmington as we really work to make sure that we develop a public school system that really meets the need of all of our students. So I appreciate the opportunity and certainly hope that whoever is the successful candidate this evening will help advance the mission of our public schools together.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. And does anybody have any questions or comments they want to make to? Okay, thank you very much. All right, now this is to fill the vacancy, as we said before, and that will be until April of 2019, which would be the next election cycle that would take place for this position. At this time, what we'll do is, if no one has any comments, we'll go right to a roll call vote. I will go in alphabetical order with the chairman of each board going last on the vote. So before we move forward, does anybody have any comments that they'd like to make at this time?
If I may, I'll
Mr.
yield
Bendel.
to Ms. Burns.
Ms. Burns?
Thank you very much, Mr. Bendel. I just want to commend and thank the parties of interest for coming forward to fill such an important role on our board. And it's been a very difficult, just reading their letters of interest. It's been very difficult. They all hold so much knowledge and admirable qualities and experiences that I think we're very fortunate to have three solid candidates to choose from.
Yeah, I would echo those comments. I certainly want to commend all three for for volunteering for our community, and I appreciate you being here tonight. And I particularly want to compliment Mr. Finley on his positivity after even in defeat this past spring. Mr. One more time, forgive me if I say it wrong, Mr. Trek. My apologies. It's a pleasure meeting you. It's the first time. Seemed like a great candidate. Ms. Newhouse, it's great to see you again as well. And I compliment all three of you for putting your name out there. It's not easy. This is certainly going to be a difficult decision. We can't go wrong here with a candidate. It sounds like whoever I don't know how the vote will go, but whoever we end up with will be a great candidate for what is already a very great, well-rounded committee that I really admire the work that they do. So I wish you well, all three of you, and I also want to recognize our new superintendent of schools is here tonight, so I want to welcome him as well. Dr. Brand is here, so I wish you well also. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we certainly have three qualified and talented individuals to select from tonight, and one will come out as a new member of the school committee, and I certainly hope that the other two individuals will continue to volunteer their time to Wilmington, maybe run in the future, because you've expressed that interest. And I want to thank you all for submitting your name and volunteering over the years that you've been here to the residents of Wilmington.
Mr. Chairman, one more thing, if I could just again echo some of the comments that have been made about, I want to acknowledge the service of Mrs. Kane and wish her well. Obviously, I think we're all thinking of her and really appreciate her many years of service to our community.
Absolutely. Okay, we all set, anybody else? Okay. All right. We're going to go to the roll call vote, and we'll start with the school committee, and we'll start with Steve Bjork. And all you're going to do is just say the person's name that you want. You can use the last name or first and last name. And I have the vote tally right here. Okay, Mr. Bjork.
All right, from first, all I need to do is say the name. I do want to offer a quick comment.
Sure.
Just to say that I've watched this person's commitment for years and years and the hours that she's put in. So although I greatly respect all three candidates and hope that the two that I am not choosing do not get discouraged by this action, I would vote for Joe Newhouse.
Jennifer Bryson.
Joe Newhouse.
Mary Jane Burns.
Joe Newhouse?
David Ragsdale.
I just wanted to quickly say that I do know all three of these candidates, and I think that all of them would be terrific additions to the committee, and would be very pleased to work with any of them. But I'm going to choose Joe Newhouse.
Tom Talbot.
Jesse Finley.
Chairman Julie Broussard.
Joe Newhouse.
On the Board of Selectmen, again in alphabetical order, the chairman will go last. Gregory Bendel.
Tonight I'm prepared to support a person who is very familiar with our school system, member of the CPAC, BPIS team, Wildwood PAC, homework policy. I think her resume speaks for itself. Three great candidates, but tonight I support Joe Newhouse.
Jonathan Eaton.
I will echo the comments that are made by the committee and the board that this is a difficult decision. All three are very talented and dedicated individuals. I will be supporting Joe Newhouse, but I want to encourage the other two candidates to continue to get involved.
Edward Loud.
I'm always the last guy, but everyone has said we've got three great candidates and we can't go wrong. So I'm tonight willing to support Joe Newhouse.
Mike McCoy is absent. Kevin Kyra, I'm going to be voting for Joe Newhouse. 6 is needed for the selection, and you have more than 6, Joe, so congratulations. I'm sure that those, would the town manager have her come and get sworn in? What's the next step at this point in time?
Yes, the next step would be to come to the town clerk's office tomorrow, if that's possible, or certainly at your convenience. You'll get sworn in and provided with a copy of the open meeting law and the conflict of interest piece, and you'll be good to go.
I want to thank the school committee for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us at our meeting. I know it's not easy to find a particular date. I'm sure you made some adjustments to your own personal schedules, so I appreciate that very much. And to the three candidates, once again, thank you for volunteering your time and being here, expressing your willingness to serve in the community, and I hope that you will continue to do so. For those two individuals that were not selected tonight, we look forward to having you be part of this team, and that's what we really are. We're a team. So we look forward to you coming in and volunteering. I'm sure the town manager has plenty of positions on various committees, and there are always elections forthcoming. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. Should we make it official? Do we need to say the vote?
I think
Just-
we're fine. It's in the record, so, yeah, we're good.
Do you want this, the vote count? You got it, okay. Okay, we're a bit early for our next appointment. Is Barbara here?
Yes, yeah, she's.
Okay. But we have, for our next appointment, I think we can move forward. Barbara Robb, Youth Services Librarian, to come up and explain to us what the next, do we want her over in that position?
Never done this before.
Of what the library's undertaking at this point in time. It seems pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. It is called a Story Walk, and they've been installed all over the country. Quite a few of them are in other of our neighboring communities. But we basically take a children's picture book and kind of chop it up, laminate the pages, mount them to, we're proposing to use fiberglass poles, kind of like you use, you put them out by your driveway so the snow plow doesn't go on your property. So we're going to mount them on, and we want to put them around the pond at Rotary Park. We met with Jamie and talked to him about the implications it would have for lawn mowing, and he seemed to feel that it would be okay if we, as long as we put things as close as possible to the pond, then they don't need to alter their mowing. So we plan to swap out the books every few months, so every few months there'll be a new book, and we think it's great for the families of Wilmington to be able to get out and both be physically active around the pond and get to read a book together. So there won't be any, the library will do all of the maintenance of it, and we're going to have, I've already been approached by a Girl Scout who wants to help participated as part of her Silver Award. So we want to involve local youth organizations in maintaining it as well.
Very nice. Yeah, I know I've heard about this walk, the library walk, story walk around in different areas. I know that they have it up in Amesbury, where I'm at, so where I work. It seems pretty exciting. Just one question. On when they put in the pole, is there going to be maybe a cement base to make sure that nothing happens to the pole, that if it's going to fall?
Well, I sort of see this as kind of a pilot project, and that, you know, we don't want it to be, it doesn't need, we're not aiming for permanency right now, so we're going to try to get it in as secure as possible. We're going to check it every so often and make sure that it's holding up. It may be that we come back at some point and want something a little more permanent, but for now we're just proposing these poles that go in the ground.
And how's maybe the manager, how's the cost of this going to come through? Does this come through the library's budget, or does it?
Yeah, I don't, it would be, I don't think there is really much of a cost, but I think
There's
it
not
would
much of a
be,
cost, and the Friends of the Library will be
Yeah.
providing all of the funds.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I think it's a great idea. When I read this, what age group are you looking to target for the reading?
Because they're picture books, I would say it's kind of preschool to early elementary school. because we're going to be swapping out the titles, there may be some months that we aim a little higher or a little lower, but I'd say the median age would be sort of preschool, early grade school.
Thank you. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I see that you're hoping to be swapping out the book titles every 3 months. I think this is a great idea. So I think to kind of keep it fresh and keep it going, I think that adds a little bit more of a reason to go and check it out.
And I think we'd like to maybe add some programming when we change the title and have a little party or a launch party at the park and things like that. There's a lot of
great work,
exciting things we can do with it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I really appreciate your work here, and I certainly appreciate the Friends of the Library who are going to contribute to this. So looking forward to hopefully residents will take advantage.
Great.
I'm sure Charlotte will want to.
We'll look forward to bringing Charlotte there, yes.
Read the books too. Okay, so we'll need a motion.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add before you take your vote. So Barbara has been with the town now for about 7 years. And a couple of things that I think are noteworthy. One being that through all of her efforts in terms of youth services, the number of programs has doubled at the library. The number of attendees has doubled. She's brought the reading programs to the Entile, to Silver Lake. So they're on the road, so to speak. So she's always looking at new ways to approach reading and inspire and get interest of our young kids. So it's she's very instrumental in all the library's efforts.
That's great.
Thank you. Well, I have a great director, Tina, and I have great staff. So we really try to work hard for the families of Wilmington.
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of projects and different things that the library does for the town. It's just great what you're doing. Okay, we're going to look for a motion to approve this project. A motion by Mr. Eaton, seconded by Mr. Loud. Any other discussion? All in favor? Unanimous with one absence. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to communications.
Yes. So under first item under communications is just a notice that the Finance Committee will be meeting tomorrow evening here at 7 p.m. To speak with myself, Dee Casey, the Assistant Town Manager, Joe McMahon, Fire Chief, and Mike Morris about the fire overtime. This was an issue that the Finance Committee had expressed some concern about during the budget deliberations that led to the 2019 budget. And so this will be a conversation. They're looking specifically to understand what are some of the factors that have led to the increase in the overtime and what steps we're contemplating to address that. So that'll be at 7 tomorrow evening. Next, under correspondence, is a memo from me to the board providing notice of a meeting that the Board of Library Trustees will be holding. In this meeting is coming up on the 21st of August at 7 at the library to talk about the prospect of authorizing an expenditure for a feasibility study to look at increasing the square footage in the second floor of the library. Russo Bar, who is an engineering firm that we use on a number of projects, if this is authorized, would come in and provide an assessment of the existing building and indicate what the cost would be to add potentially 2 rooms to the second floor. If you imagine the layout of the building, when you come in from the Middlesex side, if you come in the main doors, there's a stairwell that goes up to the right, and accesses the children's room, that area could potentially be used as a meeting room, and that would be one potential location. The other, if you're coming up from the back side of the building, if you come up the elevator and there's a window right out of the elevator, you can look back over the first floor entryway, and the proposal or consideration would be to create a room in that space. Again, additional meeting room. As you know, the facilities plan that was done recently contemplates the library being addressed in 2034, which is quite a number of years out. The library, through Tina Stewart's efforts and her staff, has really trying to make as much use of a very limited, tight space as they can. And so the thought is perhaps in this interim period there may be an opportunity to expand the space. It's particularly constrained in that youth services area because you've got a wide variety of students and kids that are trying to use a very limited space. The cost of this would be $24,770, and it would be the funds would be taken from the library state aid money that we receive every year. So that's they will be talking about that on the 21st. Next is a memo from me to the board with regard to the tax increment financing proposal or policy. So you'll recall during the course of the conversation that we had about analog devices, there was a meeting, a subcommittee, tax increment financing subcommittee that met on a couple of occasions, comprised of members of the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and internal staff to look at the merits of their particular proposal. And there was some suggestions or discussion at the time about the prospect of establishing criteria so that when the next one comes along, if there is a next one, that perhaps the town would be, or we would be more prepared or have some criteria to look at. I've had discussions with staff, Valerie Gingrich, Karen Rashis, the assessor, and Dee Casey, and we've had conversations with other communities. And one of the concerns we have about establishing a policy is that it may be somewhat constraining by establishing particular criteria, many of the communities in our adjoining area, Burlington, Billerica, Tewksbury, Bedford, Andover, they've all had these tax increment financing arrangements where companies have come in and that has been used as a tool, and those communities have not established a policy, but they look at each individual case on its merits. And certainly there are some general categories that I think we would want to be aware of. Things like the size of the investment that the company is planning to make, the number of new employees they're planning to bring into the town, or the number of employees they're looking to retain, the type of business that they're proposing to bring in. Those are all things that we would certainly want to take a look at. But at this point, I would recommend that the town not take any action with respect to establishing a specific policy.
And with that, I would also agree that having the same committee makeup makes sense to keep it how you had it.
I think that's really the key to the key to this process is making sure we have a committee that has some diversity of knowledge, representatives from the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and internal staff. So I would agree. Next is a memo addressing our trash and recycling contractor, Russell Disposal. So you'll recall there was some conversation a few months ago about challenges that not only Wilmington but communities across the state and across the country are having with regard to recycling. For many years now, the government of China has taken a significant portion of the recyclables from our country and also many countries in Europe. They established in early 2000, I think it was January, beginning of January, a particular policy where they would no longer take the recyclable material that our country generates and in these other countries as well. The challenge of that, of course, is that we in this country don't have the infrastructure and the capacity to take those recyclables and regenerate them into usable products. And as a consequence, the facilities that, in this case, Russell Disposal uses to bring that material to, their cost has gone up dramatically. So, as I mentioned in the prior discussion, up until a year or so ago, there was a very de minimis cost for Russell Disposal to bring the recyclables to Casella, which is the facility that then takes the material, sorts it, and then it gets shipped off to, in large measure, to China. As a consequence, the cost that Casella is now charging is hovering around $100 a ton. That cost is being borne in large measure by Russell Disposal, although, as you recall, recently we agreed to share in that cost as a means to try to provide some measure of assistance. One of the requirements that Russell has per their contract is that each year they have to provide the town with a performance bond. This is a bond that a surety company provides. It covers the annual cost of the recyclables, or the collection of recyclables and trash, which in this case is $1,192,297. And that bond is in place so that if Russell fails to perform the collection process, that we would be able to access the funds from that bond and pay for someone else to perform that work. The long-standing company that they've had would not issue them a bond this year. We became...
I apologize, I thought I had it off.
We became aware that in mid-June that they were not going to be able to provide a bond. And so shortly after July 1st, I issued a letter to the company indicating that they were in breach of the contract and needed to provide us with a bond by a date certain. One of the principals there responded that they would not be able to. They were still looking for another company to provide the bond, but wouldn't be able to provide it by the date that I had established. And when that date went by, I sent out a second letter suggesting that one option might be for them to provide an amount of money in an account that we would be able to access, or in the alternative that they provide us with suggestions in terms of how we can have a measure of security with respect to the contract. So they have, I believe, until the 15th of August or thereabouts to respond, and then we'll go from there. The challenge for the town in terminating the contract is that if we go to another vendor, the cost is going to be significantly higher because the new contractor is going to have to subscribe to the current prevailing wage rates, which are the rates that are paid to the folks that are involved in the collection process. Currently, the prevailing wage rates were based upon rates that were set from, I think it was 4 years ago. Also, the cost to Casella or wherever the new vendor would bring the material, we would have to bear 100% of that cost, whereas now we're bearing up to 50%. So I'm hoping that we can work with Russell and reach some kind of a solution to this issue.
Right now, and there's no interruption in trash pickup or recyclable pickups.
No, and that's the other point.
That's the
There's-
main thing.
Right, there's no service issue or indicator that we will be having a problem, but
This request that we get updates is this at meetings until this issue is resolved.
okay. Next is notice of an appointment that I made recently. Sierra Pelletier is filling the vacancy that existed in the assistant planning position. You'll recall Carolyn Cronin had been the planning assistant planner for about 2 years. She's moved on to another position in New Hampshire. Ms. Pelletier received her Master's of Regional Planning from the University of Massachusetts in 2018. While attending graduate school in Amherst, she served since 2015 on the Belchertown Planning Board, worked with the Mass Fair Housing Center in Holyoke. She also assisted the city of Chicopee doing an internship there with the Aldenville Visioning Plan, which was an effort to redevelop a section of Chicopee. So she will be working with Valerie on a number of different projects, including updates to the subdivision control bylaws. She'll be involved in the work that's ongoing right now for the inclusionary zoning bylaw. We're expecting to get a draft out in the fall, and then with a public hearing, probably with the planning board in the latter part of the year. So those are some of the things she's will be involved in, as well as certainly customer service. Next is a notice about some potential funding that we may receive thanks to the efforts of Senator Bruce Tarr. He, on the town's behalf, was able to obtain, included in an economic development bond bill, $1 million, and I'll just note this, not less than $1 million shall be expended for the improvements to the commuter parking and other facilities for the North Wilmington commuter rail station in the town of Wilmington. Provided further that not less than $250,000 shall be expended for economic development infrastructure improvements on the Route 38 corridor in the town of Wilmington. So that was included in the bond bill. The governor, I learned today, did sign the bond bill, and within the bond bill itself are these two projects. So we've passed the first hurdle. The next hurdle, if you will, is that the governor will file a capital budget in May of 2019, and that will run from 2020 to 2024. So just to be clear, in terms of capital, we're talking about major expenses, infrastructure, bridges, roads, those kind of multi-million-dollar projects. And so what we would be looking for is that both of these projects be included within that 5-year capital budget.
And I know this is off a little bit, but the Butters Road project, is that still, is that part of this, not this particular, but is that part of the upcoming, are we still on top of that?
We're still on track there. I have not heard that there are any delays. I don't. I would have to check to find out whether that is in the capital package that the governor will file in May.
Right. Okay. That'd be great if you could do that. Sure.
Next, I just wanted to provide an update on the situation with the National Grid lockout. there was a meeting that was held a couple of weeks ago with a number of area town managers in Tewksbury, and we had representatives from National Grid in attendance. They are continuing to negotiate with the United Steelworkers. They had a meeting on August 9th. I believe they're also meeting again on the 12th and the 15th. They had anticipated that this may be an issue and were in the planning stages over the last year or so in the event that there was a lockout. And so they have, according to the representatives that we met with, personnel in place to handle the work that needs to be done. The issues really, in part, stem from a desire on the part of National Grid to address their health insurance and also pension. And according to Marcy Reed, who is president of Massachusetts and the EVP Policy and Social Impact Director, the proposal that they're seeking to have this particular union agree to has been agreed to by 16 of the other union groups that work for National Grid. So I guess I think the key point is, from what we have been told, is that the personnel that they have on staff are educated and prepared to do the work. There has not been any issues, to my knowledge, from the Department of Public Utilities. So, hopefully this will be resolved sooner rather than later for all parties. Then we have correspondence from the MAPC, Mass Area Planning Council, regarding upcoming elections to seats on their board. And those nomination papers are due on September 28th. The election will be held on October 31st. The Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization is comprised of municipal officials and is responsible for planning and programming federal financial resources for transit systems. So if there's any interest from any board member, the information is here.
Okay, we're on to board to consider items.
First item under board to consider is the signing of the proclamation that September be declared Revive Civility Month in the town of Wilmington. You'll recall Tina Stewart, when she made a presentation, I believe at your last meeting, was talking about the programs that the library is putting on in September. There are a number of guest speakers coming out. This has really been a focus of late, given what appears to be the deterioration of civil discourse, and the intent of the programs at the library is to perhaps try to provide us with some guidance on how to have conversations when we may not all agree with the same or have the same perspective. So this proclamation, I'll just read it. She's recommending that the board consider for adoption. Whereas civil discourse is the free and respectful exchange of different ideas in a way that respects and affirms all persons while hearing their perspectives, and whereas hated rhetoric and a dramatic shift away from constructive dialogue leaves us unable to solve the challenges confronting our community and our country, and whereas civility lays the foundation for residents and government officials to work together to create lasting solutions to the most pressing challenges while restoring trust in the democratic process, and whereas civility fosters tolerance and empathy for cultural diversity and builds a brighter future for generations to come, and whereas recognizing the importance of civility and how it improves personal relationships and strengthens a community, we invite all residents to exercise civility and respect towards towards each other. Now therefore, we, the Wilmington, Massachusetts Board of Selectmen, do hereby proclaim September 2018 to be Revive Civility Month in this community and encourage residents to participate in the Revive Civility initiative presented by the Wilmington Memorial Library.
Okay, so should we have a motion to accept the proclamation?
So moved.
Mr. Eaton, second by Mr. Loud. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, one absent. Then we can sign the proclamation. The next board to consider item.
The next board to consider item is the signing of the state primary warrant to be primary being held on September 4th of 2018. I'll just note the positions that are open. To cast their ballot in the state primaries for the candidates of political parties for the following offices: Senator in Congress, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Treasurer, Auditor, Representative in Congress, Counselor, Senator in General Court, Representative in the General Court for the Middlesex 19th District, Representative in General Court for the Middlesex District 21st District, the District Attorney, Clerk of Courts, and Registry of Deeds.
Okay, do we need a
I'll make a
a
motion.
vote on it?
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Loud, second by Mr. Bendel. Any discussion on the warrant for the 2018 state primary? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. One absence. Board to consider special counsel services.
Yes, you will recall that when there was discussion about appointment of town council services, the decision at the time by the board was to appoint KP Law to provide all general counsel services except for representing the town on matters related to the Olin Superfund site and pending in the litigation associated with it, as well as the New England Transrail application to the Surface Transportation Board. So separate from KP's involvement with the town, it was decided that the law firm of Brooks and Durensis would be hired to represent the town in these matters, specifically Dan Deutsch, although there are other individuals that may be involved, but I think primarily it will be Dan Deutsch from Brooks and Durensis. The contract spells out the terms, and they are as was presented at a prior meeting. This would be a one-year agreement. The term actually is referenced as starting on July 16th and would run through the end of the June 30th. So,
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make it to agree to the contract.
Motion by Mr. Bendel, seconded by Mr. Eaton. Any discussion on the contract or the terms of the agreement?
Well done, Mr. Howell.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed and one absence, so it's unanimous with one absence. The next board to consider, the change with the Aleppo Temple and their management change.
yes.
Am I sounding about it online?
Yes. Yeah. So this is a requirement of the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission Back in 2015, notice was provided to communities that club licenses, we needed to make sure that their officers and directors were current. So the two clubs in town, the Knights of Columbus and the Aleppo Temple, were contacted. As it turns out, the information had not been updated in quite some time, and the efforts have been in the works here to do that. And so this evening, based upon Beverly Dalton's work and being in touch with the Shriners, the current slate of individuals is listed here, and so the board just needs to authorize the documentation here. So currently, the president is Harlan Woods Jr., vice president is Robert Havener, the treasurer is Robert Baker, and the secretary general manager is Stefan Erickson. So this local licensing authority review record is required to be signed by the Board of Selectmen. This will get filed with the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission.
Okay, is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Eaton, second by Mr. Bendel. Any discussion on this issue with the transfer of the licensees?
It's actually just the updating of the board of directors and officers.
Hearing no questions, all in favor? Unanimous, there's no opposed, and one absence. And we have one more board to consider.
Yes, the last item on the board to consider was an email that we received from Deborah Long. She notes here, I would like to request the use of Rotary Park on Saturday, August 19th at 2 p.m. for a 2-year-old birthday party. I would like to, would be serving pizza and cake, and there would be approximately 30 people. So we get these periodically, and we advise those that are requesting use of the Rotary Park that it is subject to a vote of the Board of Selectmen, and that it is as a public park. There are maybe other people there, but we indicated that we would bring it forward for the board's consideration.
Okay.
Move to grant the request.
There's a motion and seconded. Motion by Mr. Bendel, seconded by Mr. Loud. Any discussion?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, yeah.
And I like pepperoni pizza.
All those in favor? It's unanimous, and there's one absence, there's no opposed. All right, on to public comments. Does anyone wish to speak regarding public comments, or under public comments? Okay, I don't see anybody. On to new business. Does anyone wish to speak on the board of new business? Mr. Bendel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few things, since we haven't met in quite a while. I just want to start by complimenting the town as a whole, and specifically our Veterans Agent, Lou Smaglia and Mike, and what they did to bring the moving wall back to Wilmington for the second time in 10 years, and what a fitting tribute it was to those who have served. And I'm just really grateful to everybody who was involved, everybody who volunteered. And I think it was a wonderful, wonderful event over 4 days the last month, and I really was appreciative to spend some time there. I also want to commend the police and fire department on an excellent national night out. It was always a great night despite the heat. Once again, it was Wilmington. It was a great event for everybody who attended. And lastly, I just want to, this pains me to say this, but I want to wish best of luck to all the students and staff heading back to school before our next meeting. And so I want to remind everybody to keep an eye out for the students at the bus stops in the morning and the school buses. So I wish them well. I wish them a good school year.
Thank you, Mr. Bendel. Can I have my paper back now? 'Cause
Yeah.
I have everything that I have.
Yes, just a few items that didn't make it into the important dates. This Wednesday, there is a Coffee with a Cop at the library at 10 o'clock, where you get to sit down with a member of the Wilmington Police Department and have a cup of coffee and maybe chat about some of the issues going on around town. And also, Sunday, September 9th is Grandparents Celebration Day, Grandparents Day celebration at Yentile Park, where there is a number of different activities: face painting, giveaways, Zumba, yoga, and refreshments. And there's also a raffle. So I'd encourage grandparents and their grandkids to go to that as well. And I hope to see everybody this coming Saturday at 10 at Rotary Park for the Rotary Club's Ice Bucket Challenge.
Mr. Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to also commend the best veterans agent in the land, Lou Simaglia, and Mike and his cohort Mike, for what a great time the wall was, bringing that here to town. I was fortunate enough to be there often. I made it a point to try to be down there every night. I was. The 4 nights of ceremonies that he put on were moving. I'd like to say that I was educated a lot during that time there on what this country did not do for its Vietnam veterans. The time that my son and I volunteered, we spent a lot of time talking to Vietnam veterans. We had a late night shift, and that's when some of the veterans came out, and it was very moving. And I need to commend Lou and Mike and all the volunteerism in this town is incredible. They had so many people there when the wall was being put together, and then when it was being torn down, and then in between the hours needed to be a minimum of 4 people at the wall all the time. I saw D. Casey there. I saw everyone on this board here there at one point or another volunteering their time. So it was an incredible enlightenment of the volunteerism in this town, and it made me proud. And I know Greg talked about the National Night Out. It was one hot night, but it was great, very well attended, a lot of fun. I saw a lot of people at the dunk tank donating to that charity, so it was a great time. And then lastly, I have this privilege of being to shout out to a veteran. So Major Robert Oliveri is a retired U.S. Air Force. He volunteers for the Commission on Disabilities. He assisted with the moving wall. He also donates gas and food cards to the needy Wilmington veterans. Rob is an all-around good guy and honorable veteran. This guy goes out of his way to assist those in need. So shout out to Major Oliveri, and thank you for your time and service, and thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I want to echo the comments that my colleagues made regarding the moving wall, and to Veterans Agent Lou Simaglia and the amount of work that went into doing that 10 years later, from when we first had the moving wall here. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. I had a knee replacement just about 3 weeks ago, but I did watch it on WCTV, and the coverage was outstanding. I saw the ceremonies. They were very moving, and I do appreciate the residents that all came down. It was tremendous, a show of support for our veterans agents, and what they do day in and day out. So it was just a tremendous showing of love and support from the community for what was done there down at the Common. My first appearance, I guess, was at the National Night Out. It was hot, and there was some clouds moving in, so I had to move pretty quickly with the crutches. But that was a great event. As always, it's just fantastic the way they have it with events for the kids, and they have food and just a community event where it brings everybody together. So kudos to the police and fire, especially the police, for putting that on. And as my colleague Mr. Bendel said, back to school, it's unbelievable. I can't believe it's that time, but just be careful. The cars and kids, be safe. I'm sure that everything will go smooth as it always does in the opening of school, but good luck this year. And that's about all I have. And on to important dates.
Important dates. So Sundays through September 30th, Farmers Market, Town Parking Lot, Town Common Parking Lot, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. As previously noted, August 14th, Finance Committee meeting, Town Hall, Room 9, 7 p.m. August 15th is the last day to register to vote in the state primary. Town Clerk's office is open until 8 p.m. August 17th, Library Rotary Movie Night. The movie is Sing. It will be held at the Swain Green, 7:45 p.m. August 15th, Coffee with a Cop, as previously noted, Memorial Library, 10 a.m. August 18th is the Ice Bucket Challenge, Rotary Park, 10 a.m. August 21st, Board of Selectmen Trustees Meeting, Library, James Banda Room, 7 p.m. As earlier noted, reviewing the funding of a feasibility study. August 24th, Library Rotary Movie Night. The movie is Grease. Swain Green, 7:45 p.m. August 28th, school opens, grades 1 through 12. September 3rd is Labor Day, town offices closed. September 4th is the state primary election. Polls open at 7 a.m. And will close at 8 p.m. September 5th is the first day of kindergarten. September 5th is also a brush drop-off, Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. September 8th, brush drop-off, Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. September 8th, the library resumes Saturday schedule, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. September 9th, the Harnden Tavern Open House, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Next Selectmen's meeting, September 10th, Town Hall, Room 9, 7 p.m. September 17th is the Candlelight Vigil, Town Common, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. September 19th, again, a Coffee with a Cop, Memorial Library, 10 a.m. September 22nd, Shredding Day, Municipal Parking Lot, 9 a.m. to noon. September 23rd is the Chamber of Commerce Half Marathon and 5K Run Walk. September 24th is another Board of Selectmen's meeting right here, 7 p.m. And just a note, September 25th, Wilmington was incorporated 288 years ago.
Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session for the purposes of discussing negotiations with Jeff Hull, Town Manager, over the terms of a potential employment agreement in accordance with the MGL, Mass General Laws, Chapter 21A. 2, as an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the town's position, and further, that upon the conclusion of the executive session, the board will adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Lau.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Eden. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4 opposed, 4 in favor, no opposed, and 1 absence. And that's it. Thank you and good night.